Welcome everybody. I see some familiar names. I'm excited to have you guys here. What I'd like to do, like while we're getting started, is first and foremost, I'm going to welcome Jody. Jody, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. So, for those of you that don't know him, Jody is actually one of our partners. He's with Blackline IT, and he is the CEO of an MSP. And aren't you guys in the Chicago area? Am I getting
Yeah.
that wrong?
Chicago Metro, yeah.
Yeah. So, what I'd like to do is I know we talked about maybe doing it a little bit, but I'm gonna launch it now. I want to just cold ask how well you guys think you communicate with your clients. And we're not doing anything nefarious with these answers. I'm just genuinely curious how well you think you do. And then we're going to go through, Jody is going to wow you guys with his presentation. He's got this really cool communication model that he built. It's called technology intelligence. No. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technology.
I always forget what the Q means because I think IQ means intelligent something.
Means quotient. Yeah.
Okay, quotient. Okay, so technology intelligence is the right term. The Q always messes me up though. So, TQ, why did you make this, Jody?
I over 45 years of being in this business, believe it or not, started when I was very young. What tended to be the primary issue with, let's just say, implementing technology or helping companies with technology wasn't the tech itself. It was the way in which that got communicated.
Yeah.
And it's been years and years of challenge of trying to help business leaders understand technology without turning them into technologists.
So that's pretty cool. So I know when I ran my MSP, I felt as though my communication was stellar. Nobody communicated better than me. I love how honest you guys are not being with your realistic answers. Nobody was better at communicating than me. I was the best. And I had to learn the hard way that I needed to communicate a different way. So I'm really excited to hear what you're going to teach us. I see we've had a few people answer, not everyone, but that's okay. You'll never get everyone to answer. I'm going to share these results here in a moment. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to dive right into content. I'm not here to pitch anything. You guys know the drill. So I am, though, going to share the results. It's anonymous, don't worry. Oh, it's not as easy to read though. I'm sorry, guys. So on a scale of 1 to 10, most of you put yourself in the middle for how well you think your clients understand technology. And everyone put themselves in the bottom half for how well you think you explain your solutions to your clients. And for the most part, bottom half again to how often your clients accept your recommendations. So Jody, I think you're going to make some people pretty happy today. What do you think?
Well, I hope so. And to add any value to the job that you have and we all have when we're communicating technology, that's my hope today. My hope is that you pull something out of this. It gives some value. You take it back to your day-to-day, to your team, and hopefully it moves the needle a little bit. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you're like this is how we are, what drives us from a purpose perspective is not just being technologist and playing with fun things, I should say. We really want to get the outcomes that the client's looking for. We want to make them happy. We want to provide those technology solutions that we know is best for them. And there's nothing more frustrating. I'm sure you feel it much as we do, that when you know you've got a good solution and they don't take the recommendation, or they've got a good solution, they don't fully understand it, or you're pitching a new client and you're like, we are so aligned with you, but then there's some nonsensical reason why they decided to go with another vendor when you clearly had the stellar solution. So it's kind of rooted in that. And when I would do a first principles kind of like deep dive, it came down to some of these communication challenges or a lack of framework. So with that being said, I will jump in,
Please.
and let's. I've got to do some of the camera switching myself, so just kind of bear with me. All right, so technology intelligence, going from a firefighter to strategic advisor, as you probably. Let me do one more thing here. Sorry, guys. I want to be very conscious of time, so I do not overrun. So what tends to happen is that I've seen this over years, is when you're doing technology work, they see you as a technologist. They only see you as a break fix. They only see you as the guy underneath the table fixing computers, as opposed to a true strategic advisor. And the strategic advisor is going to be in a position to get those recommendations accepted. They're going to question you from a perspective of, this is a trusted advisor to me, and I'm going to ask them good questions to get me where I need to go, as opposed to just trying to negotiate price of whatever it happens to be. So being a strategic advisor, I found you have to position yourself as one. You got to speak like them in order to do that. And so what I've seen is that, and I'm going to start with I'll start with a story, because it'll anchor us during this talk. So this is a field service company that we started working with like 10 years ago. And they were they're buying companies. They had multiple that they wanted to integrate together, and they're starting this big push. And we talked to them about the infrastructure that they needed in order to accomplish the goals. They're talking about what they wanted to do across the whole country, et cetera. And centralizing their operations and making the experience better for their team and for their field techs. And what was fun was me now providing them with solutions like this, or slides like this, or solution like this, diagrams of what the tech is going to be and how cool the tech, the jargon. And because we really were like, this is going to be great for what it is that you need to get accomplished. That's overwhelming. And it became evident that what we were presenting wasn't translating directly to what it was that they were trying to accomplish. It was translating to what engineers like to do. And that is at the core, what I believe is at the core of the challenge that we have as technologists, is that we suck at communication. We suck at communicating, not really, but if you get what I'm kind of, technology conversations are extremely difficult to people who are not technical. It has all kinds of challenges. There's nuance to what it is that we do that is not going to necessarily be understood or caught by the business leader. And we're tasked now to have those conversations. We're tasked to provide that nuance in a way that they understand. And what I found is business leaders think and they act in terms of outcomes. Technologists think and act in terms of systems. And let's say that one more time. They are thinking about outcomes. They talk about and they think about technology completely different. They almost could care less about the technology. They want a specific outcome of stability. They want an outcome of accessibility. They want an outcome of productivity. They don't care what the tech is. I've seen that over, I've had my Blackline company, I've had it for 30 years. They could care less about the technology. They want to understand the outcome, but we think and talk and present in terms of systems. And I believe at the heart of that is a language barrier. That's what I've seen. And I've seen other, let's say, other negative outcomes of this that have occurred when you have technologists that basically own all the information around technology. And the business leaders are at a disadvantage. Now this industry has grown up around them. I call it the technology industrial complex. It's big tech, little tech, white collar tech, blue collar tech is what I call it, which is all the technology manufacturers and providers, as well as the service people like you that are helping them. They are overwhelmed with how much options they get, the lack of counsel, the lack of direction. And guys, they're being sold licenses they don't need. They're being upsold constantly. They're being given oversized technology. There's so many, and you probably have seen it as well when you're out there. When you do your assessments, when you review what's happening with these clients, you see that who was doing this before? They don't need half this stuff. This was over spec. This is under spec. They didn't need those 20 licenses. They only needed 5, but somebody's still charging them. These are the challenges that they, as business leaders, see, and they've just accepted it. They've accepted like Stockholm syndrome. They now are okay with their captors because that just is how it's always been. So what's the answer to that? The answer to that is, I call it technology intelligence. It's a framework to bridge that communication challenge. The challenge that we have as technologists to communicate highly technical ideas to business people who are not trained the same way. They don't think the same way in terms of systems. They have a whole different perspective. And I really believe that a framework was missing. There were the components of it, and we relied upon the individual business leader to figure it out on their own, maybe through conversations that they would have with you or with me. That was a slow process because it's not part of their that's what they do all day long. They run businesses, or they solve very specific topic specific in their jobs. They don't work with technology like we do. So I really believe that there was a framework that was needed. And that's why I built this technology intelligence, broken up in between 2 sections. You can see there, there's leader centric and there's organization centric components. There's 4 of them to technology intelligence. This is similar to, Steve, you'd mentioned it, IQ. It's IQ, EQ, which is emotional intelligence. And then TQ is intended to be kind of the continuation of that. You've got raw intelligence and IQ. You've got emotional intelligence, which help you adapt and work inside this world of relationships with each other. And technology intelligence is intended to provide that next layer for them to thrive in this new intelligent age that's upon us right now, and that's happening all around us with AI. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the digital mindset here real quick. So the first component of TQ is the digital mindset. It is a way to see technology differently for the first time, to see what is possible, and to have a way of explaining technology when you're not a technologist. This again is a framework to help stop solving problems and start and resist solving and going right to solutions, and take a step back and understand first. I know it may sound cliche, but it holds true in the technology space as well. There's a famous quote by Einstein. He says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and then spend 5 minutes on the solution. That is so true, is fully understanding what the challenges are as opposed to jumping to solutions. I see a lot of technologists that will do that, and I believe that short circuits the process for the business leader to get to the same place. Resist first to go to solutions and start with CHOP. What I call CHOP is it's the starting point of taking anecdotal evidence that's all around you and your clients' worlds, and you break it up into just, these are either challenges or they're opportunities. The way that I've seen, there's a need just to at least start categorizing what we see around us from a technology perspective. For example, a challenge is something's broke. A challenge is something that is currently working is not working as intended. What's currently in place as a technology is not working as intended. That's a challenge. An opportunity is what can be solved. It's a possibility of new tech that you don't currently have that could be addressing some goal that the organization has. And we're going to talk in more detail about that process in the innovation mindset, but it starts with just calling it something. Are we dealing with challenges or are we dealing with opportunities? And we'll tie back why that's important to the leader in the innovation mindset. So for example, here's a very easy one. Field techs have got 5 computers, broken 50% of the time. That's a challenge. That's got to be fixed. That's different than we're going to introduce an ERP solution that might have other challenges around it, but that's an opportunity. That is doing something new in preparation for the business to be able to take advantage of something. So categorizing is an important first step, I believe, of just helping them, business leaders as well as yourself, first determine whether or not it's a challenge or opportunity. Now, a close second to that is to start describing technological challenges, not in terms of technology, but in terms of outcomes. And here's some examples of outcomes. The business leader thinks like this: efficiency, simplification, streamlining workflows. They want to have they want to have interoperability. They want to have stable, scalable, secure. So they want to reduce risk, or they want to take advantage of new opportunities. They want to do things strategically. So the outcome, and this is something I'll talk about a little bit later. It's in my book that I wrote on the topic. What I've seen happen is that when the conversation, let's say with the CEO of this company that I kind of introduced, that we're, set up this virtualized high availability environment. While we were presenting and while I was presenting, I was paying attention, like, why are we missing? I'm showing them the way in which they can have the best solution to meet their scalable needs. But I wasn't talking about scalability. I was assuming they understood the value of having a high availability VMware configuration with automatic rollover, which they're like, what is that? And it's like, oh, well, that's redundancy as well as stability, because now if something breaks, it just swaps over and your systems aren't interrupted. So so our team continues to work even if there's a computer failure. Okay, so that's redundancy. They want to know that the technology isn't just going to drop off the earth and their people in the field, when they've got hundreds of them, are going to be dead in the water. So even though I didn't present that during the time of later I was reflecting on it, and they want to hear the outcome of the tech. They don't really care about the tech or the components of the tech itself. So in the case of our friends, the field service, I'm showing you here a little bit of, taking productivity, taking access, taking operational and strategic outcomes, and then start to put into each of those outcomes what their specific needs were. Field techs need to be able to enter orders, visibility, accounting department be able to see those. That's the outcome that they see. And you have to hear that as a technologist, right? Because you're like, okay, well, in order to provide field techs always having accessibility near 100%, scalable to 150 field techs with minimal variation of how that technology gets deployed so they can minimize the training, that is a different conversation than just talking about going right to solution and saying, oh, well, we've got to put in this kind of server with this kind of specs. We need to have 2 or 3 internet lines that have failover with automatic on the firewall, blah, blah, blah. You guys know, right?
So,
yeah.
So this is good. I feel like we MSPs have probably heard, oh, you should be having, outcome driven conversations before. But so this is good. It aligns with at least things that I've heard before. But what I feel like I'm missing is how do we get from here's the challenge to here's the solution that they're looking for. We probably are asking, questions, but we're not asking them. We need to ask them questions like, how big do you need this to scale? How quickly are you planning on scaling? And they're probably going to be very similar to questions as you would ask if you're trying to figure out, well, how big of a server do I need? Right. So the questions are all probably very similar, if not identical. It's just the way that you're delivering not only the questions, but the actual solution needs to be framed in a way that makes sense to the client. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it's about framing it more than it is changing the what as technologists you have to do it. You have to do all those things which you would normally do. It's just a question of framing it in the terminology that they use. And in my book, I've got a whole list of these. I call them technology value propositions. These are value propositions, essentially.
Mhm.
What's the value I'm going to get? What's the outcome that I'm going to get? So in order to implement it, that's actually that's next, which is the innovation mindset. Talk about how do we now take what we've identified as an outcome and also we've identified as challenge and opportunities, and how do we make it real for the client? And how do we take the client through the process? Because innovation tends to be overrated. It's an overused concept. You can call, there's studies out there, probably 4 or 5 different major periodicals say the same thing. The concept of innovation or digital transformation is so overused that business leaders don't distinguish what that means and why it's important to them. And if you bring something to them as a technologist, how does that actually even equate? And the innovation mindset is intended to provide you with, let's just call it a model again for you to start dumping in these ideas of innovation and the ideas of challenges and opportunities. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to, I'm going to anchor that idea in, this is Jeffrey Moore's concept called the innovation adoption curve, which is a book he wrote called Crossing the Chasm of how do organizations adopt technology. And they fall into this mainstream market, it's this bell curve. And there's pragmatists, conservatives, and skeptics that lag innovation. And then you've got these early market innovators. And what I found was there's a concept called the explore exploit paradox. So follow me, stay with me on this because I'm going to tie it back together next, which is when you're looking as the technologist at offering a client a solution, or you see a challenge that they're bringing to you, you see an opportunity that they're bringing, knowing whether or not it falls into either maximizing efficiency of what they've already got, or they're maximizing opportunity and exploring something different, is called the explore versus exploit paradox. And great example from nature are honeybees. So the honeybees have a thing called the waggle dance. And the waggle dance is what bees do when they come back to the hive to tell the other bees where to go find nectar, where to go find what direction they should be traveling in. Well, what's really interesting is that 80% of the bees follow that, 20% ignore it, and they go off in random directions. And what scientists found was that those explorer bees were critical to the survival of the hive because they would go look for new sources of nectar in the event that the current source of nectar either dried up or something catastrophic occurred. They would now survive because the explorer bees had found other sources. Now, in the concept of innovation, it's very similar, which is you're either maximizing, let's call it the exploit bees are maximizing what they've already invested in. Just like technology, business leaders want to maximize what they've already invested in. They want to get the most out of it, most efficiency. They want to get the dollars out of it, okay? The same thing with honeybees. They want to go out there and exploit as much as they possibly can. But at the same time, business leaders and you have to have some component of their business and of their technology explore what could be. Look into AI, do some pilot projects, go explore and maximize the opportunities, which may have a different level of success, but are also fundamental to the survival of the modern business. So if you can bring these together now, the idea of CHOP, Here's opportunities and here are challenges. Here's innovation, the innovation mindset and the modality, opportunity maximization versus efficiency maximization. It falls into his same curve. And there's people in that. So this is what's important. The business leaders that you're talking to are just people. What's their mindset? What innovation mindset does the business leader that you're talking to have? Are they more on the opportunity maximization? Are they explorers? Are they risk takers? Are they Elon Musk's and Steve Jobs types? Or are they the conservative? Are they the skeptic? And you can probably align them in your head and that will help you not only understand the customers that you're working with or the prospective customers, but as a way of how do you present and provide the right level of counsel. Again, moving yourself up, not just communicating, but being a strategic advisor by offering these kinds of insights that, hey, what you're asking for is a challenge that's going to help maximize the efficiency of your organization. You can get a much easier ROI. As opposed to this other system that you want to put in that you're looking to invest in. That's on the opportunity maximize. That's an opportunity side, which is a little bit more exploratory. And your expectation should be you may not get the return on investment you think, because that by definition may not yield the results that you think it's going to yield or that you want it to yield. It's not as easy to quantify. And that's an important as a technologist to go from, well, this is just what we recommend so that you're going to do it. It's no, here's an opportunity that the business will need in order for it to scale. Because you said you're going to be scaling 20% each year. This is an opportunity to put a system that's going to be able to scale that growth. But we're not sure if it's going to work the way that you intended to. Just setting expectations. Now you're at the strategic advisor level. You're not at the fix it level. You're not the firefighter anymore. So it's important to show those two. Lastly,
but when you say something like, but we're not sure if it's not going to work the way you want it to, I would be terrified to say that to my client because I don't know, I guess I always felt like I had to know everything.
Yeah, it's impossible, as we know, right?
Right. But then why am I recommending a thing that might not work?
Because you have to frame it. You frame it within the context of what this innovation modality tells you. You know this is exploratory. So let's say that it's AI.
Okay.
Everyone's talking AI, right? Do you believe that right now there's ROI for what AI can do for any business that's in our marketplace right now? Is there case studies out there? Are there examples of ROI specifically in the markets of the companies that we're serving? No, AI is completely exploratory. It's a necessity. It's going to change the world. We know that, we feel it, we see it. But can we go to the client and say, you invest X dollars on an AI solution, you're going to get Y, or we're going to help you find something? You're going to be like, hey, we should do a pilot. We don't know if you're going to get the results out of this AI pilot, but it's worth exploring for these reasons. It's worth exploring because you're on the front end of this curve. But if you're not a pioneer, right? You're a skeptic. You're not even going to care. You're like, until somebody else gets bloodied going through the door or through the wall, I don't want to know anything about it. You need to know that that's what you're up against with certain personalities and certain modalities. So hopefully that helps Steve. Like,
It does, yeah.
It's a way of framing it as opposed to, you don't have to own it. It's not your tech. You're bringing solutions. Just framing it puts you into a level of advisor as opposed to, Mr. Fix It.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So lastly, on the whole innovation mindset is, this is just another a tool that you can use to help your clients and also just from your own perspective. I call it the cycle of innovation, where CHOP is at the center. Whatever that challenge or opportunity happens to be, I call it look inward, which is what tools do you currently have that potentially could address this CHOP? If it doesn't satisfy it there, look closer, which is what tools are available from the vendors I'm already working with, the consultants that I'm already working with. Go a little bit farther out and say, we're not using it now, but maybe my current suppliers haven't. If that's not the case, then you look outward and you start looking at new vendors. You start looking at new tools. That's outward. And then the last circle, and this is how I've seen innovation evolve. It usually hits one of those circles and then it ends up at the outer circle. The outer circles look ahead, which means you invent something yourself.
Ooh.
Or the client invents something themselves. This is very common with the innovation modality of those who maximize opportunity. I had a client of mine, this is back in the 90s. So this dates it a little bit, but the mindset was the same. So David, his name, had his company, recycling company, and he adopted client server technology, database, distributed computing back in the 90s when it was something we were just doing and we had experience with because we were doing with larger companies. I want that. That's what he wanted because he wanted to drive his company forward. And what we found was we couldn't find, looking in, looking closer, looking out, his solution wasn't available. We built one for him. And so he invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, which was a big number back then, because he saw the vision of how he was going to maximize and take advantage of that market because the competitors weren't doing it. And it basically, what it boiled down to is it ended up, they call it the environmental report. They would recycle all this product from all these companies, all these different types of recycling material. They would bring it down to one piece of paper of what was the environmental impact of what their recycling were. They loved it. They could take that to their board. They could take that to their employees. They could take that to the marketplace and say, we are a good corporate citizen because look at what we do with our recycling. And they just printed money because of it. But it was based on a system. It was based on data collection, based upon integrating all those products together. So that is the value of combining both the vision to look outward if you can't find tools that are available to you, also with the modality that you lean into with your client that has got let's call it an innovative personnel. They're pioneers in the area. The two of those are going to, you still got to deliver, but at the same time, he was willing to take risks along the way in order to get that delivery. All right, next, we're doing pretty good on time here. Physics of technology, the impact technology has on an organization. So this stems out of my dad was an architect. I used to watch him build buildings and architect them. And he told me one time, as I was asking him about why something was the way it was, is because there's physics of technology. I'm sorry, there's physics of construction, Jody. There are certain things you cannot violate in order to build a building, right? You can't just have a big open space without the proper amount of engineering involved. And I found the same thing to be true inside of technology, if you can believe it. I believe that in the physics of technology, it follows the same as aviation. There's thrust that is opposed by drag. There's lift, which is opposed by weight, which essentially is gravity. So if thrust overcomes drag and weight, it creates lift. In the marketplace of technology, I believe that technologies provide thrust. The systems that we offer our clients are the enabler of thrust. And then what opposes that is drag, which is the acute interruption of technologies as they've purchased them and as they're intended to operate. Drag flattens their tires on the runway. They can't even get up off the ground. That's down systems. That's email not available. That's servers which are not responsive. That is either completely as an organization or by teams or individuals. Drag destroys the ability for a company to be productive. And being able to describe the challenges or the things that occur inside of a business within the context of physics helps the business leader understand the impact that it can have. Weight, for example, is technical debt. It's outdated systems. It's non-upgraded systems. Now, technical debt and non-upgraded and systems which are ignored can create drag, right? Because they can go down unexpectedly. They have to keep being rebooted, etc. And to have a conversation with a client that says, these things that we're telling you that need to be done. Like when you communicate to your client and say, we got to upgrade this, we got to do this, we got to do this. They have to just take you at your word that those things are what needs to get done from a best practice perspective. They have to take you at your word. They got to trust you. Well, if they don't know you and you're trying to invite them to work with you, you can explain things within the context of physics. What you're talking about, Mr. Client, these things are out of date. It's creating weight for your company. It's weighting you down. It's opposing lift. You're not able to maneuver as fast as a business because you've got these old, outdated, unmanaged, unmaintained systems that are not secure, that every once in a while, you now have drag. It doesn't matter how much thrust you got. When you have drag, you're not operating. They understand that. We understand it. It's a down system. It's a breach, right? Internet went down. Servers rebooted themselves. Servers are slow. Processes are burned. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter what the technical thing is. They know it as drag. It's infecting me right now. So back to our friends, the field service company. So what they wanted for thrust was high availability. They wanted it to be performant. They wanted it redundant. They wanted it scalable. That was thrust for them. But the drag they had was because they purchased an ERP system without our blessing. We actually advised against it. That created drag. It was a database system that was based on 70s tech, COBOL, vSAM, file-based systems. Awful to buy that it was basically like 8 years ago that they bought it. No reason they should have done that. But they introduced weight at the time that they're trying to scale. So we had infrastructure that was scalable, but their ERP system was not. And this is a way to communicate that. They had limited data insights because this file-based system didn't play well with dashboarding systems and Tableau or Power BI. They introduced this weight, end user complexity, more weight. What that does is it creates I call it suboptimal maneuvering speed. So in the world of aviation, maneuvering speed is enhanced by the reduction in how much weight you've got to move around. So if you got to move an airplane through the air, if you've got more weight, it takes more thrust to move. If you have light aircraft with lots of thrust, you turn on a dime. But if you don't, and you have weight that's affecting those forces, you move slower. And businesses do not have the luxury, especially nowadays, to move slowly. They have to move faster. They have to move nimbly. And when you can explain to your business leaders the physics, not just the technical specifications of what they're looking at, it changes the dynamic of the conversation just enough that they start to understand it more from a model like this than they do trying to understand redundancy of high availability SANs with, whatever. Yeah, like, a four host system based on VMware using SAN. Forget about all that. What can this do for thrust? And what does it do to reduce the possibility of any kind of drag and weight? It changes the conversation. All right. Lastly, we're rolling up here, almost done. The last piece of the technology intelligence framework is called the Apex Innovation Model. The Apex Innovation Model is the technology ecosystem that is actually there, not what most business leaders and even at times most technologists don't recognize as separate individual entities. Technology is overrated because most organizations, most technologists, as well as business leaders, think technology is one thing. Okay? It's one thing. The Apex Innovation Model is intended to show the multifacets, the ecosystem that is actually there, that's actually behind the scenes, that makes technology an effective tool for an organization. It's a roadmap. It's intended to roadmap and help you explain to your business leaders what you're doing for them and what the effect is, who's responsible, so that you can now start assigning and describing the work that you're doing for them within the context of a framework. So here's the Apex innovation model in a high level view. At the center of, let's call it the technology conversation, is the people. Who are the people? What do they need? What is their mindset? What are the tools that we've been giving them? How do we train them? They almost completely ignored in the world that I see. Technologists bring technologies. They pretty much ignore. They throw tech. Leaders throw tech at people, the employees that run the companies. Surrounding people is technology. Yes, those are the tools. They open up their computer. They've got all the different software tools, the SaaS tools, the database tools, the productivity tools. That's technology. The workstations, the laptops, the phones, the printers, the Wi-Fi, that's the technology. What surrounds the tech, that surrounds the people, is service. That's where you come in. You're keeping that service, you're keeping it up to date, you're maintaining, you're managing, you're being proactive, you're reacting, you're adjusting, your work is in the service layer. And what overarches all of that is management. Somebody has to be a manager. Where are the policies? Where are the procedures? Where are the best practices at? How are we going to be sure that our technologists are doing what we say we're going to do in the services, technology, and people layers? How are we going to know that? Our management layer takes care of that, and it encompasses all of it. You talk about IT governance with 99% of the people that are out there, they have no idea what that means. They have no concept of what IT governance is. They don't care about it. They don't see value in it. And it is critical, and it ought to be critical in all the conversations that you have with your clients. So the innovation model is built in these 4 pyramids. And I use pyramids because at each pyramid, you can kind of see them in the diagrams here. They're layered. There's 4 layers to each one of these pyramids. And each one is intended to operate like Maslow's hierarchy of need. If you've ever studied that in your psychology courses in college, you know that at the bottom, the base of Maslow's hierarchy is, food, shelter, and safety, right? So if you're being chased by a target, you don't care about your education at that point. You don't care about the fact that you've got a great social group, or that you've got opportunity to entertainment. You could care less because you're getting chased by a target. Your number one priority at that moment is survival. Okay. It's that same concept is what I use in the Apex innovation model, that there are layers to both people, technology, service, and management that are founded and need foundations. Like, I'll just pick on technology. At the foundation of the technology pyramid is infrastructure. That is your plumbing, that's your wiring, that's your heating and air conditioning, like you'd have in a building. Without that, you have no building. You need a foundation, you need concrete that is properly engineered and founded so that the building stands. You need a foundation. Infrastructure is technology's foundation. It is what everything else in technology builds upon. The next layer above that depends on infrastructure is your line of business applications. So that is where work actually gets done in the business. That's your ERPs, your CRMs, your SaaS systems, your project management, your productivity tools sit inside of the line of business layer, but they mean nothing and do nothing without infrastructure. And you can see that. Then it moves up business intelligence. And at the top of the pyramid, just like in Maslow's, it is self-actualization. At the top of the pyramid is AI. To get to AI, you need all the other parts of the pyramid operating as intended, at least in the version of AI that has the most promise. And lastly, the Apex innovation model gives you the AIM roles. Now, this is something that we found, and I found over the decades of experience. I'm not going to go through each one of these roles. You can kind of look at it yourself. That in each of these pyramids are roles and people that are essential for the normal operation of any technology in any size organization. Okay. What's different is what amount of time is necessary or amount of effort is necessary in each of those roles based upon the size of the organization. So if you're some big, huge company, you got a 40-person staff, you should have each one of these roles in your staff. full-time, maybe multiple in those roles. Okay. You're a 10-person, 15-person company. You still need these roles, but you may not need the CTO, but once a year. You may not need a senior engineer, but a couple of times a year, but you need an L1 or an L2 multiple times a month. Okay. But you also need somebody who's going to manage the business, who's going to make sure that that we're managing our assets and our subscriptions and renewals, that we're tracking whether or not best practices are being applied and properly documented. So there is a need for it. Whether or not you do it or your client does it is a separate conversation, because what AIM roles do is they provide a view into what your or your customer's capabilities are, and it also offers accountability to what roles ought to be there and at what level those roles ought to perform at. So, for a practical application of this, we do reviews, we do assessments of our clients before they become clients, and we identify in the Apex innovation model, we apply our best practices, and then we identify every aspect of these 4 pyramids that they are lacking based upon the 400 or so best practices that we have. And then we go back to the client and say, you are marginal here. You are at risk here, and wherever it happens to be. And then it ends up on these pyramids, and it ends up with people to manage. And then we go back and say to them, we believe your level of service that you need to address all these gaps that are in all these pyramids, because we lay them out in each of the different layers. Your line of business is failing here. It's got multiple silos and sources of truth. Your infrastructure is failing you. You don't have best practices defined. You don't have anybody doing anything proactive. We're going to fill all those gaps in, and you know what it translates into? A service contract. At the end of the day, you provide a service contract. It shows them exactly where inside of the Apex innovation model, it shows them where is the gap and what is going to solve it. And that requires a person, and that requires a certain amount of time of that person, which requires a certain amount of dollars. It's that simple. I mean, maybe that isn't simple, but it sounded simple to me, which is once you identify where you need work to be performed because you've identified it inside this model, and then you identify the people inside of it, how much of that time is necessary, you can just back into it with dollars, and then you come up with your contract. So, and then they understand, they're like, oh, this service addresses these 3 things inside of this pyramid. Oh, there you go. Conversation complete, if you will, right? So I believe with technology intelligence, and I've run through an entire 45 years worth of my understanding of tech in 35 minutes, 40 minutes. So the book does a better job of explaining this, but TQ is intended to create a language and a framework so that between you, technologists, and business leaders, there's a different conversation being had. You don't have a technology problem when you're working with your clients. You've got a language problem, and TQ is intended to be the framework that bridges that language gap.
Once you guys are doing all of this great communication with your clients and prospects, you're going to close so many more deals, right? But that just creates a whole new problem. Now you got to figure out how to collect all that money. That's where alternative payments comes in. And I'm sure Jody can attest, and his team can attest, that alternative payments will make your lives better at your MSP, because we're going to automate the entire accounts receivable process, from sending out the invoice to marking the invoice paid once the client pays it, helping the client set up auto pay. We can even save you some money. If you've got clients that pay with credit cards, you can pass those credit card fees on to your clients, and you can do it granularly. It's not all or nothing. You can pick and choose which clients do that. And then finally, when we deposit the funds into your bank, even though it's like a lump sum of funds from all the different payments you've collected, because you're collecting so many payments, we will associate every payment with every payment made to that deposit, And if you've paid any of the credit card fees, we'll associate all of those fees. There's no looking at statements at the end of the month, trying to figure out and reconcile. It all just reconciles. Jody, did everything I say agree with how it works for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just do one better. And obviously we didn't talk about this, and I'm not getting paid to say any of this, but we cut our time in half for the time period. They call it something funky. My CFO calls it something funky.
Days sales outstanding.
Yeah, days outstanding. Cut that in half. So we went from our it's like a cliff. We were up here, and then it cut in half in terms of the days that we were getting dollars. So our dollars just went like that to get into our bank account. And it was once we put alternative payments in. So it was it was well worth the effort that we had to put in to get that to work.
And so what we're going to do now is we're actually, Jody, do you have anything else you wanted to run through with folks?
Oh, I just wanted to, I would, a couple of things to take away.
Yeah. Takeaways.
Yeah. So you no longer suck at communicating now that we've talked through this.
Perfect.
You're now equipped. You have a framework. I would recommend, if I was to do some homework, or tell homework, it would, or give you guys homework, it'd be three things. Number one, start communicating CHOP, looking at problems from an outcome perspective first, and communicating it from an outcome perspective. That'd be number one. Like, think of it as opposed to a technology solution. Think of it as an outcome that the client is looking for. Second of all, I would look at the innovation mindset and start seeing and talking about solutions that come your direction, or sorry, not solutions, but CHOP that comes your direction from your clients within the context of challenge, opportunity, maximizing efficiency, or maximizing opportunity, and applying and start talking about that within the context of the leader that you're talking to. Are they a maximizer of efficiency, or are they a maximizer of opportunity? Are they out there wanting to do cool, great, innovative things, or are they like, just maximize what we already have, help us, make these things work? That leadership mentality and modality is important. I think just start looking for that. I believe it'll change the way that you converse. And lastly, see your own service offerings within the context of the aim, so that when you have conversations with your clients, it's no longer this big lump of, we're just your technology provider and here's a technology contract. It's, we are doing specific things with specific outcomes that have a specific reason for you, Mr. Client, to justify the dollars that you're paying us. We have little to no pushback once we show them the gaps and how that gap is closed through a role that's in the aim, and how that role is now being paid for with our contract. From a sales perspective, they have nothing else to say. They've already told you what the problem was. They already told you what the challenges were. You've already assessed them and understood what those challenges are. Now you're showing them a direct correlation. Up until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, we would take what they said, documented, and then our contract, and the two of them weren't connected. And I recommend that you start connecting every component of your contract, or what you're proposing, connect it to a specific outcome. And lastly, anybody on this here, if you want to send me your contact information, when the book's released, I'll send you a free copy of it. Just email me, tell me who you are. I'd like to get to know people here. I'd love to start a conversation too, by the way. I don't have my socials set up. I'm starting up my own personal brand. That's not going to be ready till the book is released, which is probably going to be in 2-3 weeks. I've been working on it for about a year now. But once that happens, I'll have socials and you can follow me and engage with me there. I would love a conversation, honestly. Like, part of the, unfortunately, with doing these kind of webinars, I can't have those direct conversations. I got to do, I'm just kind of talking at you, but I would love to start a conversation. And if any of you are going to be at DattoCon in October, I'm going to be there and would love to meet you. If you could send me your email as well, just to have a conversation.
Perfect. So I know we've only got like a few seconds left, but I do want to give you guys the opportunity. AMA, ask us anything as long as it's not why are you running Mac OS beta? Why are you using Zoom instead of Teams? Because you already know the answer to that. I'm ridiculous. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If we run out of time, even if we don't answer the question now, what I can do is I can ask Jody to give me an answer in email, and then I can include it. Tomorrow I'm going to send you guys a follow-up email with the recording. Yeah, this has been great. Jody, thank you so much.
I appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for attending, and hope there was value. Hope there was value in this.
I truly believe that there was. I learned something here. Even just in the way I'm going to have conversations with others about webinars. I feel like I learned how to maybe have outcome-based conversations with other folks on how I want to make these happen. So no, this has been great. I'm sure your book is going to do really well. I'm sure MSPs are going to really level up, and then who knows, maybe in another 45 years you'll have a new concept for us.
Yeah. Yeah. If I can unlock the secret of longevity as well on top of that, hey, who knows? AI might solve that. Who knows? Anything.
Probably. I mean, by the time you're ready to exit the company and retire to a beach somewhere and sip mojitos, you'll have uploaded your entire brain to OpenAI or someone by that point. So it's going to work. Well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. This has been amazing. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in actually 2 weeks is the next office hours, I believe. Next week, we're taking a hiatus for the Labor Day weekend.